SoFi Stadium's getting the Gold Cup final when I believe it was reported by FIFA that that stadium wasn't big enough to host a World Cup game. So that's an interesting twist, as it were. Snapdragon Stadium, where San Diego Loyal play, they are hosting one. That'll be interesting. We got Las Vegas getting Glendale, Arizona, where this US Mexico game's going to be played.
It's weird, Jimmy. It's almost like San Diego's trying to get an MLS team.
That's really weird.
Now all of a sudden they're just got some games on the map. It's a bizarre.
Funny how that works.
No Northwest, kind of shocking.
It is, yeah. No Pacific Northwest up there. You can see kind of empty in that part of the country. I thought it was a bit surprising. Kansas City's had quite a few Gold Cup games in the past. Not this time around. St. Louis is coming to sneak in. Soldier Field comes in. I find this interesting, Heath, because I think that we're seeing a couple of markets here that didn't get World Cup bids or didn't get World Cup host city ones. Not that Soldier Field said they didn't want in, which I bet you they're kicking themselves for. But now they seem to be getting a little bit of the scraps here, the sloppy seconds for this Gold Cup venue. We have a couple stadiums in Houston. We got AT&T Stadium in Dallas. Cincinnati's getting a game. We have Fort Lauderdale, so Inter Miami Stadium getting a game. Charlotte FC getting a game. And Red Bull Arena getting a game. So kind of a mix of different sizes of stadiums, which I like too. You know, BMO Field in Toronto.
I mean, look, we know that the big draw in the Gold Cup is the Mexico national team, right? So when you think about their group stages, I could see them Soldier Field, no problem. They'll rock that house at least for a good amount of if they get a game there. Glendale, obviously, AT&T Stadium, obviously, Allegiant, obviously. Gold Cup final being at SoFi, obviously, and then I think the U.S. would do well in Levi's like it did during Copa America Centenario. But like generally, those big stadiums, I would presume, are reserved are going to be most well used by the Mexico national team and what they draw. Otherwise, I like this. I like City Park Stadium in St. Louis. That's amazing. I want to see TQL in Cincinnati. Like these are atmospheres that are unbelievable for national team games that aren't going to be your biggest games and huge draws. Like that type of, I hated playing in quarter full stadiums with the national team because you went to a stadium that sort of was too big a capacity for the matchup. I didn't hate it, but like it just, you want to feel that energy.
Sure. Well, our friend and former teammate of the U.S. men's national team, Hercules Gomez, said that or called out CONCACAF recently for hosting so many tournaments in the U.S. And I think he knows why it happens. There's just more money to be made. But I do think that there's an argument to be had about what if in the group stages of the Gold Cup, you give Jamaica a home game. It's not that far, right? You're only asking potentially somebody else to fly down to Jamaica. And there's already enough travel that's probably going to happen in this Gold Cup anyway, even from one side of the country to the other in the U.S. or giving Mexico a game at Azteca or maybe one of their smaller venues. It doesn't have to be Azteca. I do think that there's something to be said there. I think it would be cool for Haiti to get a home game. Or
I think it'd be amazing.
There's a lot of Haitians in the U.S. I know there's a lot of Jamaicans in the U.S. and it's cool to see your team where you're currently living. But I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way that could maybe build out the federations of those countries so they continue to benefit from this as well.
Well, CONCACAF's goal is to develop 41 nations, right? So why would you give it to Haiti and not?
I'm not saying the whole tournament. I'm just saying one game.
Yeah, but you go through a number of like Nations League home games. You get all these things, and very rarely are they well attended, right? Actually, that's a horrible blanket statement. That's not true at all. There's 41 nations. Each nation's going to be different. But like when your ability to drive revenue and bring in sponsors that are going to drive the ability to then have trickle down money into these developing nations and create programming specific to those countries, I do think you need to go where the biggest pool of money is. When I think about it on that sense, now I can't tell you whether or not the transparency of where a dollar goes when it gets earned and what nations it goes to, but in theory, they're the governing body for all 41 nations, right? And you're trying to earn as much money within your pool to be able to trickle that down and create programs. In my conversations with them, they care about, you obviously have to satisfy the bigger nations because that's where you can drive a lot of your revenue, but that revenue isn't just going into their pockets. That's meant to create programming and create more grassroots capabilities and possibilities and accessibility across the 41 nations. And so I do think having games in those places would be amazing, but in the same way that you know, if you played a big game in this, you play a big game in the U.S. Mexico plays all their matches in the U.S., right? Because there's an ability to a financial benefit for them doing
maximize
that.
the dollar that they're going to earn. 100%.
But CONCACAF as a governing body has a responsibility to make as much money as possible that can give money to nations to develop and create programs within those nations. Now, maybe that is better if you bring awareness and you bring the games and you bring all these things, but they do get Nations League, they do get qualifying, they do get a number of these things.
Sure.
And there is probably some systemic issues that keep going to the bigger countries that aren't allowing those other ones to develop, that are forcing them to stay generations behind over generation, which I agree with. And there's probably some deeper, darker things tied to that. But generally speaking, I would go after the bigger pool of money and trickle that down into these nations. But it would be great for those countries to all have a game too.
Yeah, I was speaking more romantically, and you're speaking more pragmatically, and that's where we're having. We're not on the same page there. All right, speaking of CONCACAF, let's get into the CONCACAF Champions League because the Final Four is almost set. Violette beat Lyon on Tuesday, but it wasn't enough because Lyon won the first leg 5-0, so Lyon moves on. And LAFC beat Vancouver 3-0. They went on aggregate 6-0 over the 2 legs. That was on Tuesday as well. So they booked their ticket to the semi. Philly, behind 2 goals from Julian Carranza, they end up coming back and getting a 2-2 result to get past Atlas. So they're into the semifinal.
What a ball from Jack McGlynn.
Unbelievable ball.
Yeah.
Philly, like when Philly's playing at their best and they're like super confident, they are a lot of fun to watch, which is more
haven't done that a
often
lot this year.
Not this year, but like over the
Yeah.
last couple of years, it's been, they really are exciting.
It's pretty
team.
amazing. Yeah.
So you got LAFC versus Philly in one semifinal, which feels, I wish they were playing in the final, but here we are. So we got that. This is a rematch of the MLS Cup final from last year, one of the most epic, if not the most epic MLS Cup final of all time. Me and Heath and Charlie were all there in person. I think for the first time since we had started the show in Soccer We Trust. So that was very exciting. We got to witness some history together. Now they're going to play against each other over 2 legs in the semifinals. Maybe I like it better because it's over 2 legs. You get a little bit more, strategy and tactics in there, but that should be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to that. And Tigres plays Motagua tonight. They're up 1-0 and they're playing at home. So I like Tigres to go through and take on their Liga MX counterpart Lyon in the other semifinal. But it's lining up to be a fantastic CONCACAF Champions League. I just wanted to throw that out there.